Might have to fight your sister for it.
Silverado, now with 2002 cash back. See your local Chevy dealer.
Ed will return next week with an all-new episode. Now, stay tuned for the Bush White House inside the real West Wing.
It is the symbol of American leadership. Home and headquarters to every president since John Adams. And in this two-story annex, the West Wing, the nerve center of America's war on terror, a famous office and a few small rooms where history and humanity, triumph and defeat all have had their day. Tonight, this president and this historic office at a moment in history. The private moments and places you have not seen before, up close and personal. Welcome to the White House.
Looks like it's fresh. 10:40.
Uh-oh. I love unscripted days. Before we begin, colon. Come on, let's go to work.
This is an NBC News Special. The Bush White House, inside the real West Wing, with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. There is no place quite like it. And when you spend time inside the West Wing, you feel the power, the pressure, the weight of history. Tonight, you'll see an entire presidential day from the inside out. Was it a typical day? Well, the president and his staff surely made some plans with our cameras in mind. But the president could not plan on Enron or the shooting in Israel that happened the afternoon we were here. Cameras or not, this is the headquarters of the Bush administration. And that work never stops. In fact, it begins very early. Even in the pre-dawn darkness of the Capitol, the White House is a busy place. The president is what he calls a morning person.
It's going to be a busy day. Yeah, it will.
And not long after the lights go on in the White House living quarters at 4:30 a.m., all around the nation's capital, many of his top advisors are already on the job or on their way.
So I begin my day. I've already read a couple of the major papers.
Presidential advisor Karen Hughes is not a morning person.
So these 7:15 meetings are not my favorite part of the day.
From Los Angeles, this is Marketplace.
And everybody else I work with is a morning person. The president is a morning person. Carl is a morning person. Andy is a morning person. Condi is a morning person. They all get up and bounce out of bed.
Morning, girl. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
No surprise.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning.
The day we were there with cameras, it was all hands on deck.
Chad, how are you, man?
Early.
Come on, guys. Come on, Barney.
6:50 a.m. and the president is already on his way to the West Wing with first dogs Barney and Spot.
Come on, Barney. Hey. Hey, come on, let's go. That's a good boy. That's a good boy.
The president makes his way across the South Lawn towards the Oval, as the famous office is known to West Wing staffers. They call him 43, the 43rd president. His father was 41.
Come on, let's go to work. Yeah, I know, they're okay. Come on.
It is now 6:53 a.m., and Chief of Staff Andrew Card is ready and waiting.
Andrew.
Good morning. Top of the morning to you.
With that, the presidential day begins.
Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, sir.
Ready?
Yeah.
This morning, it has on it the overnight threat assessment file, the prospect of more terrorism around the world. Every minute of the president's time is allocated. The ledger book is here, the gold line, a detailed chronology of a closely scheduled day.
This schedule is what the president relies on every day.
From a meeting on an upcoming trip.
And then you will speak at the reserve
Duncan
officers.
Hunter's coming down on this. We got to spend some time with Duncan Hunter. Yes. That was his request. Yeah, I think we need to do that.
To another on education policy.
My answer to all this is this: let's figure out how to teach them how to read.
The president expects to be on time, and he demands it of his staff.
Uh-oh.
2 minutes late is cause for concern.
So Ari's running late. Is he on his way?
Yes, he is.
Okay, we'll wait for him. Hey, Ari.
Morning.
How are you?
Being early is something to celebrate.
We're 3 minutes early, Josh.
Chief of Staff Andy Card knows where the President of the United States, POTUS in White House speak, is at every moment, thanks to this special computer. Card has to know the Chief of Staff not only runs the West Wing, but also parcels out the President's time.
I try not to have people go into the Oval Office that do not need to be there. If they need to be there, they'll be there. If they want to be there, they won't.
How do you say no to people?
Very candidly, I tell them the truth.
So it's need versus want.
Need versus want, that's the test.
Would you call down to Ashley and let her know I need to ask the president something real quick?
Ashley Estes is the President's personal secretary.
That's great.
It is up to her to field those urgent requests. You just don't drop in on the President. Estes and presidential aide Logan Walters are the young gatekeepers that even the most senior officials must go through.
How did you get here? You're 27 years old. You're sitting just outside the office of the most powerful man in the world. Ashley, how old are you?
I'm 27 too.
When you go into a bar in Georgetown, do you still get carded?
I don't have much time to go out, but whenever I go anywhere to have a drink, yes, I do get carded all the time.
You too?
I do get carded.
And are you tempted to say, do you want to see my White House pass?
No, definitely never. Definitely not.
Their work is making sure the President's Day flows smoothly, right down to the signing pens.
These are the actual signing pens the president uses. These are the official signing pens that he signs legislation with President Bush's office.
Like so many here, they're Texans, far from home in the nation's capital.
You want to go back to Texas?
Absolutely. I think a lot of us were in love with Texas before we came up here.
For the call.
Right.
Dr. Condoleezza Rice, the National Security Advisor, prepares to brief the President on his call to the British Prime Minister.
He's outside the Capitol in the Situation Room, having a really hard time setting up a line.
You know, yeah, but it would be a totally private visit.
One briefing begets another.
Notice the Duma passed a resolution
Yes,
about
sir.
the ABM treaty.
Yes, sir.
You read the threat assessments today?
Yes, sir. You might want to just encourage him to encourage anyone that he's talking to get their pledges in for the Afghan Recovery Conference.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister. Please stand by for President Bush.
At 7:49 a.m., the President talks with the Prime Minister.
Good morning, Tony. How are you? I told the people here that one of my customary habits is to check in with my friend in Great Britain, so I'm glad we're able to talk today.
Directly across the hall, in the Roosevelt Room, the senior staff is planning the rest of his day.
At 12:50, the President will depart the White House en route Teamster headquarters. At 2:20 for 30, accompanied by Mrs. Bush, the President participate in a bill signing.
President Bush came to office determined to make this a more formal place. The West Wing is adorned with priceless American art, and everywhere you look, the presidential seal on coffee cups, packets of Equal, and even M&Ms.
Hey, how you doing, sir? Commander, how are you? Good, sir.
A big part of the president's time is spent waging the war on terrorism, and much of that happens here, a cramped basement facility called the Situation Room, a high-tech, highly secure facility once reserved for managing the occasional world crisis. Today, it's in use almost constantly. It has become one of the busiest parts of the West Wing. While the president is in the Situation Room downstairs, members of his National Security Council gather for a meeting upstairs.
Yeah, 6 years in Vietnam, I know. Smell it and taste it. Yeah.
Not wanting to be late, these most powerful of all the president's men mill about like schoolboys making idle conversation, waiting for the president to arrive.
Good morning. You won't believe this, but last night, right before I went to sleep, I watched C-SPAN. I had to see the Rumsfeld briefing and the press conference. You were brilliant. Did I survive? You were brilliant.
The mood is light at the beginning, but the National Security Council is focused on serious business.
Okay, fine. Before we begin...
The war, Secretary of State Colin Powell's trip to Afghanistan, and the efforts to get that country working again.
So we had a pretty good visit into Kabul. Karzai expressed the view that the Afghan Interim Authority will need $1.7 billion over the next 15 months.
Tell the Secretary that I talked to Tony Blair about this subject, and he...
But these advisors are not restricted to today's challenges. They're already looking ahead to what may be next. the Philippines.
Here's a friendly country that is actively engaged in dealing with the problem they have, which is a serious terrorist problem.
Vice President Dick Cheney is spending more time at the White House instead of in the so-called cave, a secure, undisclosed location.
Who determines when you go to the cave? And you make the decision based on the daily threat assessment, or do you make it more randomly?
It's more randomly, and we make it based primarily on being unpredictable. And we do try to avoid bunching up.
The vice president also deals with a number of issues on the domestic and political front.
The Enron situation obviously is of concern.
It is an especially hot topic for Cheney, who's been criticized for not revealing details of phone calls and meetings with Enron officials in the months before the company filed for bankruptcy.
Why shouldn't the American public know all the details about those 6 meetings that the Enron executives had with your staff or with you during the Energy Task Force?
Well, there's an important principle involved here, Tom. I think it's a mistake for us to be in a position where the president or the vice president can't sit down with anybody we want to and talk about any subject we want to without the people who give us advice having to consider the likelihood that everything they say to us will be public.
Enron. It is a story that will stay with the White House throughout this day. When we come back, a presidential workout, and the West Wing plays defense on Enron.
We don't know where the investigations are going to go.
The Bush White House, inside the real West Wing, is brought to you in part by Chrysler. Drive equals love.
Mom, how did I get my name?
We named you after the place where...
How much of your day, if you could quantify it, is spent on the war?
I'd say half. And in terms of my concerns, about 90%.
The president may be preoccupied with the war on terrorism, but he and his staff know they cannot afford to forget about domestic policy, the economy, and the forthcoming State of the Union speech.
We're seeing that as the beginning of the State of the Union rollout. Thematically, next week, we've got on Tuesday, jobs.
Wednesday is going to be military. You'll have a meeting.
The man who manages the president's political agenda more closely than anyone else is senior advisor and fellow Texan Karl Rove.
No one is more aware than he is of what happened to his father, who was a very popular war leader, and then lost re-election, primarily on domestic issues, principally on the economy.
Mm-hmm. Winston Churchill won World War II and was voted out of office by the Brits not too long afterwards. So he understands that you need to stay focused on winning the war, and you also need to make it clear to the American people that you've got a domestic agenda that's robust and important and affects their lives in a positive way.
Rove works on the second floor of the West Wing. It's the White House back room, the political operation, and home to another trusted aide from Texas, Karen Hughes. The quarters are cramped, the furnishings are ordinary, paperwork spills over, but the job is critical to the president's future, keeping his ratings up and his message out there.
We have some big things coming up. We have the first day of school in Afghanistan on March 21st, and I think a lot of these little girls who are 8 and 10 years old, this is their first day ever to go to school in their lives.
White House Communications Director Dan Bartlett is next door, talking up the president's budget.
There are going to be other key priorities in this budget that need to be funded from a domestic front.
But today, the national news media has one question for the White House: Enron.
Hey, Ed, Mary Madeline, how are you?
Down the hall is veteran Republican operative Mary Madeline.
David, alfalfa.
Now counselor to the vice president and assistant to the president, she's doing her best to keep both bosses out of the Enron mess.
Well, we're not hiding anything. No, let me answer you specifically. What are we hiding? Go read the report. There's nothing to hide.
Begin with Blair phone call, lunch with the vice president, labor meeting.
Downstairs, Press Secretary Ari Fleischer meets with his staff to lay out the message of the day.
I've got a lot of foreign policy stuff that we're ready for, and I bet none of it comes up.
He'll get a read on what the White House press corps wants to talk about at his informal meeting with them, normally off camera, known as the gaggle.
Good morning, gagglers.
It is all Enron.
How much did Enron get out of this policy? And it almost sounds as if your response is, how dare you ask?
Dismissing the study is partisan.
Why? Because you disagree with the conclusions or because they're wrong?
Both. We'll see everybody at the briefing.
Elizabeth already.
All right, Elizabeth gets
How much longer do you think these press briefings will be dominated by Enron?
And that's entirely at the decision of the press. And that's their prerogative. I think the country, though, kind of rolls their eyes at the way everybody in Washington thinks it's all about them. That there's a political scandal in everything, when in fact this looks increasingly like it's a serious, serious business scandal of the highest order.
Fleischer will keep a close watch the rest of the afternoon to see if he is getting his point across.
I want to show you this, what they call the CIC, which is...
When it comes to the war on terrorism, the president has taken personal charge of getting his message out, especially when countering Osama bin Laden.
But this is more along the information side, about how to sell the coalition story to the world.
This is the Coalition Information Center, the office he created shortly after 9/11 in the old executive office building next door to the White House. Despite the progress in Afghanistan, the president is convinced the war is far from over.
Well, thank you all. Keep working hard. Appreciate your service.
Do you think that we'll stay on alert as a country for the remainder of your term?
I do. And unless I can say to the American people, we got them all, and or they've surrendered, or they're no longer interested in hurting America.
September 11th changed almost everything at the White House. The president's security, even inside the secure bubble of the White House grounds, is dramatically tighter. We get a rare glimpse of something that has not changed. His workout in the gym on the second floor of the residence may be more important to him than ever. And it's no walk in the park. He tries to exercise for an hour every day, including a 185-pound bench press. Call that executive privilege. For his staff, midday is a chance to grab a quick bite from the mess in the basement and bring it back to their desks.
Ready for lunch?
Yes, sir. Another routine that was interrupted after September 11th, the president's weekly lunch with the vice president. It's also making its way back onto the schedule.
What do you got for me today, Ferdy?
Moving the president outside the White House is as complicated as ever. Today, the president is scheduled to visit the Teamsters Union 8 blocks away, but the full secure package of 5 vehicles plus 12 more will make the trip. So will the so-called football, the plans and codes for nuclear war. And as always, the president moves on time. The host at the Teamsters Union is Jimmy Hoffa Jr.
Now, Mr. President, nice to have you here.
Jimmy, thanks, Doug. Thank you very much.
And the president is here to stump for his energy bill.
Thank you all. Let me just be to the point. A good energy plan is important for our national security, and it's important for job security.
Big labor at this table sees jobs in that bill. But the Democratic Senate does not like the president's plan to allow oil drilling in ANWR, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge.
But if the energy bill goes down because of ANWR alone, you'll still...
It won't go down. See, that's the point. The votes are there.
Of course, these days, stories on the energy bill always include the Enron angle. It's the story the White House would like to see go away.
I think it has political legs.
Well, I think it has these legs. I mean, people are going to say, you know, what went on in Washington for all these years? How come these guys didn't have full disclosure of their accounting practices? My Justice Department is going to lead a full investigation. And some have said, well, you should have done something. I don't know what they mean by that.
Well, I think some people think you should have sent up a flare to the SEC or to somebody who said, look, there's a lot going wrong here. A lot of people are about to get stuck.
Well, in early December, we did send up a flare about the pension plans. And, you know, when you're not evidently as forthcoming with your books as you should be, it's very hard for an administration, much less a series of analysts and stock pickers, to know what's going on. And it infuriates me to think that that there was not full disclosure for the shareholders and full disclosure to the employees about what was going on. I fortunately didn't own stock, but I know people who did. My mother-in-law owns stock, and it's not worthless.
Should take a beating?
Yeah.
The White House says the president's mother-in-law bought just over $8,000 worth of Enron stock in 1999 and sold it last December for $84. The CEO of the Houston-based company, Ken Lay, has been a supporter of the president and has ties to many in the administration.
Ken Lay never tried to get in touch with you, though.
No, I hadn't talked to Ken Lay. He supported me, You know, I knew him in Texas. He's been a very generous benefactor to many charities in the Houston area. The last time I saw Ken, I think was the last time, was at my mother's function on literacy.
Senior aide Carl Rowe was forced to sell his Enron shares at a loss last year to comply with ethics regulations. Even though thousands lost their life savings in Enron stock and 401k accounts, this administration is pressing ahead to allow all Americans to buy stock as part of their Social Security accounts.
So you're going to continue to pursue that?
Absolutely. This is a fundamental reform. This is a fundamental reform that is important to the country long term.
The White House again today trying to distance itself from the scandal that is now engulfing Enron.
On the north lawn of the White House, the reporters call it Pebble Beach because of the gravel carpet laid down for the camera crews. The press is not giving up on the Enron political angle.
Press Secretary Ari Fleischer spent much of his briefing today dismissing charges made by
Which does not seem to faze this White House, which stays on message and hammers back.
Well, there is nothing new. So that's what I'm telling you. There's nothing new. Our position hasn't changed.
So I'll try to wrap this up pretty quick so I can grab some lunch. Okay.
And, of course, on schedule.
Sorry, I tend to walk fast.
Up next, a look inside the residence.
And you know, the day is not complete without a small block of chocolate.
With First Lady Laura Bush.
Hidden Valley is coming to the Dallas Farmers Market, asking folks, how do you like your ranch dressing to taste?
Just a full flavor. You know, I like to taste it.
Spices that are really good.
Like Hidden Valley ranch dressing.
It's creamy, delicious. This tastes like no other dressing.
My favorite.
Well, I believe you ought to stick to the original.
Hidden Valley ranch dressing. We made it first, we made it right.
What's that ranch dressing supposed to taste like?
Hidden Valley Ranch, the way ranch is supposed to taste.
Why just wash your face when you can wash away rough, uneven skin and make pores less visible? Neutrogena Pore Refining Cleanser. Gentle microbeads exfoliate. Alpha and beta hydroxys make skin instantly smoother, more even. Neutrogena Pore Refining Cleanser.
Hey, Mike, do you and Maggie ever think about, you know, swapping?
Oh, yeah. Your wife is into that? Definitely. And the kids.
Kids? Okay, here are my keys. Let me get yours. Perfect. We're in!
Chrysler Town & Country. With a variety of models, available power sliding side door and liftgate, some people just have to try them all.
Hey there.
Exclusively from Chrysler. Our 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain pledge, because love is a commitment.
Tomorrow on NBC Nightly News, having a baby, a dream fertility drugs can make come true. But the fear is these drugs could cause cancer. So what's a woman to do? Now, new answers about your real risks. The truth about fertility drugs. Don't miss NBC Nightly News tomorrow.
Right now, get out there and get in a new Ford, because your local Ford dealer is with great deals at America's #1 choice. Now take up to $2,500 cash back or 0% financing on select Fords. That's $2,500 cash back or 0%. The right deal, the right time, right now. Because we're with the best deals at America's #1 choice.
I'm Clint Black. Join Lisa and me for One Houston United, a live telethon concert Saturday, January 26th from 7 until 10. And let's all do our part to help the victims of Tropical Storm Allison. See you then.
Join Clint and Lisa, along with me, Frank Billingsley, and Emily Aiken, and help thousands of our friends and neighbors who lost everything during Allison's devastating floods. One Houston United, Saturday at 7, live right here on KPRC Channel 2.
The new 255 horsepower Infiniti i35 with the most powerful engine in its class. Don't blink. More power, more grace, more I. The new i35 from Infiniti.
What's new since 6? Find out tonight at 10 on News 2 Houston Night Beat.
Alongside the West Wing, the House, as in White House, the residence, as it's called. Flowers are arranged here. Meals are prepared.
You know, the day is not complete without a small block of chocolate, you know.
The stage in the ornate East Room is literally set. Shortly, the president will sign the Safe and Stable Families Bill to encourage adoption. But here in the residence, it's another Bush who reigns, First Lady Laura Bush. There are interviews to be done.
We've had a great and wonderful and heartbreaking and joyous year here. Everything. We've experienced everything.
See you, Sydney. Happy New Year.
And each day, the residence serves as the epicenter of Laura Bush's schedule of events. There are house guests, the teacher of the year.
Congratulations. He's an inspiration for me, and he should be for all Americans.
And house pets as well. The mansion's most mischievous resident, Barney, a gift from EPA Administrator Christine Todd Whitman.
Barney?
In the Blue Oval Room, the President and Mrs. Bush visit with some of the families affected by the bill, which will be signed today. But the talk is all about the first dogs.
We had a chance to see the dogs out back.
Were they behaved?
Good care of them.
How was Barney?
They looked good,
Barney
didn't they,
was a
guys?
little Scottish Terrier.
Did he try to bite your feet?
At ease with ordinary Americans. That's a trait that even the First Family's critics admire.
We call him G-Man.
G-Man?
G-Man, yeah. And his initials are GB, right?
Hey, that's good, G-Man.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about ready to begin, so if you will...
Although the demands of the president's schedule are never far away.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and Laura Bush.
I'm proud to introduce someone whose commitment to children is at the core of his dedication to our great country. My husband, the President of the United States, George Bush.
Thank you all. Well, thanks, Laura. I appreciate those kind words. I love you a lot.
Children's issues, education, literacy. These are the issues the President and the First Lady cared about deeply long before September 11th, and they're still on their agenda. When we come back, a rare visit up there for our exclusive interview with the President and Mrs. Bush on their first year in the White House.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly, and I'm going to be your instructor today.
She seems nice.
That means you belong to me.
Uh-oh.
Let's go! Pedal, pedal, pedal!
Bring it on, Kelly.
Need energy that lasts? Try Energy Crunch from Wheaties. It's got complex carbs, protein clusters, and B vitamins for that lasting energy you need.
Thanks, Kelly. That was fun.
Wheaties Energy Crunch. How far does your breakfast go?
It's a beautiful morning.
Good morning, sweetie.
Good morning, dear.
Good morning, princess.
Good morning, Daddy. Mary, Jeff, breakfast time.
Get real.
Jeff, Mary, you've got 5 minutes!
Hey, Mom. Bye, guys.
Are the kids up yet?
Now more than ever, the best start under the sun. Florida orange juice.
Get truly fresh and clean where it really counts with Cottonelle. Only Cottonelle has toilet paper with thick, absorbent ripples, plus pre-moistened wipes for that extra feeling of clean. Cottonelle ripples and folded wipes. What it means to feel clean.
Julie's really suffering.
Yeah, she's getting a bad cold.
Head all blocked up.
Stiff and achy all over.
Better get that new Alka-Seltzer Plus.
Oh, yeah.
Introducing a new Alka-Seltzer Plus with a new effervescent cold-fighting formula to break up nasal congestion and release you from your worst cold misery. New effervescent Alka-Seltzer Plus breaks up your worst cold. And now there's new Alka-Seltzer Plus Flu. Great tasting relief for your worst flu symptoms.
Intruder in Sector 12. Intruder in Sector 12.
Hey!
security software protect your whole business?
Sector 12 not secure.
Not just pieces. Ours can. eTrust Security Software from Computer Associates.
Next Wednesday on an all-new ad.
Do you think you can help me?
A good lawyer will make the ultimate mistake.
Would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow night?
Getting involved with a client.
Nobody's going to jail. I'm going to get you out of this.
You must really like this girl.
And what he'll do to win the case.
I'll find a way.
Is criminal.
You did it?
I did it.
All-new ad, NBC next Wednesday.
A year ago, George W. and Laura Bush were beginning his presidency in a time of peace, with an economy that was not yet in recession. His first few months in office were uneven, and he took a long summer holiday. Then, September 11th. I sat down with the President and Mrs. Bush earlier today in the East Sitting Room upstairs in the White House residence. I asked them about the night of September 11th, when the Secret Service wanted the first couple to sleep in the secure bunker under the West Wing.
I wasn't interested in sleeping in the bunker. I was too tired to sleep in the bunker, so we came up to her own bed. And Laura was sound asleep, and I was nearly asleep, and an agent rushed in and said, "I think we're under attack, Mr. President. We need to go back in the bunker." So, and Laura can't see very well.
I didn't have my contacts on, so
I was guiding her through the basements of the White House in her nightgown, holding Barney, holding Laura, and Spot chasing behind. Kitty was left to defend herself, and it turned out to be a friendly airplane.
A lot has happened since then, including the very heavily publicized pretzel incident. What did you think when you saw him, when he walked in and said, "I passed out"?
Well, I was actually on the phone upstairs, and he called me on the phone and said, "Come down, something terrible's happened." So as I ran down, everything went through my mind. I didn't actually think it would be him that was sick, because I'd left him sitting on the couch watching television, and, I couldn't imagine, but, you could tell it was the surface.
But have you changed your routine at all about where you are in the residence?
Heck no.
Not really.
If I want to sit by myself and watch football with the dogs, I'm going to.
And eat pretzels?
And eat I even fired up a pretzel the other day, and it got down smoothly.
The American Taliban, John Walker Lynn, is coming back to the United States today. What do you think his parents are thinking, Mrs. Bush?
I'm sure his parents are unbelievably crushed and, worried and sick and everything that every parent feels when their children have a problem like he has.
I come down that he volunteered to join Al-Qaeda, was trained by Al-Qaeda. I also am pleased that he's going to be afforded a chance to make his case in a court of law. The decision was made not to try him for treason for a variety of reasons, and I support General Ashcroft's decision to bring him to a civil court.
We have a new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll out today, and 40% of the people say that they think the country is back to normal or almost back to normal at this point. Are they being too optimistic?
I wish the question would have been asked, do you still think we're in danger of an attack?
Well, they do say that, and by a heavy, substantial margin, they think that we are still in danger.
Well, therefore, the country's not back to normal in that sense. And that's my biggest concern. The reason I bring that up is that every morning, as you saw, I read a threat assessment, and I'm concerned about the fact that a terrorist may decide to attack us again. We're on full alert. We're doing everything we can, including routing him out overseas.
And Iraq may be on the screen at some point?
Well, Iraq is on the screen. I mean, after all, they're not letting our inspectors in. But see, I don't feel the impatience that some might feel. There is a certain sense of impatience about Osama bin Laden that creeps into the news coverage. He's not it. He's a part of the big objective, which is to rout out terror. But I'm patient about our ability to get him and where we go next.
I'm told that some members of your staff were not very happy when you went to the West Coast and said you raised taxes over my dead body because they said it brings back memories of your father saying, "Read my lips."
Too bad. You know, there's occasional hand-wringing going on in the White House, but I say things like I want to say them. And my point was that I fought hard for a tax cut. It's necessary for economic vitality. So for those who worry about how I say things, you know, my attitude is too bad. I'm going to say them the way I like to say them.
I might tell him not to, though.
Yeah, well, she told me not to. Actually, it's not. When she says it, I say, well, yes, ma'am.
What did you think when you heard him say "over my dead body"?
She didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
Not because of the reference to Dad.
That's right.
But because she thought it was an unfortunate way to describe how strongly I felt about the issue. And you can't please all the people all the time, including your wife.
I read somewhere that when the president said that he wanted Osama bin Laden dead or alive, you also got after him on that.
Why do you keep bringing up the sore subject?
You got after him on that, saying, Bush, are you going to get him? As a way of letting him know that you didn't approve. Is that true?
Well,
yes.
sort of.
He's saying yes.
It is true. I don't think she likes the kind of the Texas...
Well, I do like the Texas, of course.
Well, I mean, kind of the way I say things. And look,
I like the way he says
these are obviously unscripted moments. I speak from my heart. I think the American people understand what I was saying, and that is that we're going after him.
He is plain spoken, and I like that.
I don't want to drag this out, but the president, by his own acknowledgement, occasionally, when he is being spontaneous, wanders off into the language wilderness a little bit.
to put it mildly.
Right. And you're
From an old fourth-grade grammar teacher.
Yeah, there you are, the school teacher. So do you get him back up here at the end of the day and say, now listen?
Every once in a while. Every once in a while.
That's an accurate statement, every once in a while, but those every once in a whiles are pretty blunt. Look, here's the thing. I think the American people want somebody to just express themselves as plainly as they can. I admit it, I am not one of the great linguists. I'm not sure why that's the case, but nevertheless, my words tend to be pretty much to the point.
You talk about press coverage. Many of the occupants of this house think, for example, that the press downstairs and around the country, for that matter, when it comes to the president, just involved in a big game of gotcha.
You know, certainly I read stories that I don't like about my husband. Or
What about stories about you?
Yeah, I always hate those ones that talk about the way I look. But
she's getting good press, and she deserves it.
Well, you are getting good press, but it does come with the territory, unfortunately.
It comes with the territory.
Whatever you wear,
that's right.
Whatever your hair looks
that's
like,
right.
Whatever you say, it's all out there.
Look, I don't like everything that is said about me or written. On the other hand, I don't have to read it. And I think it's I frankly like the interchange with the press. I like the give and take. I mean, it's an important part of the job. And nothing that'll be written will diminish the enthusiasm we have for our life here. We're having I'm not sure the right way to say it. I really, really like being the president. And it is full of all kinds of pressure, and but it's full of all kinds of interesting opportunity. And we're too close. Our relationship is too strong to endure some of the slights that come along.
Up next, the frantic preparations for the president's all-important State of the Union speech, and the president's national security advisor copes with a sudden crisis.
It's hard to believe Johnny Mosley didn't always get the right number. But the buttons were small, his gloves were big, and one thing was clear.
Wrong number.
It was the end of the line for Johnny Mosley. But hope soon came in the form of a man in a black overcoat who taught him that to call someone, all he needed was a voice.
Call Cooper.
Dialing Cooper.
A voice that sounded an awful lot
Thanks, man.
like Johnny Mosley.
Voice dialing from Sprint PCS. Proud sponsor of things fast, new, and really quite amazing.
Did you know over 65% of cavities happen
In your back teeth!
So Reach created Squeeze, the back toothbrush. It's designed to reach all your back teeth to help prevent cavities.
Where they happen most!
New Reach Squeeze, the back toothbrush.
Chrysler 300N, the most powerful V6 sports sedan in its class. With its seductive styling and inspired engineering, it is truly a pleasure to drive. Even when that sort of thing is strictly forbidden.
Samuel, is that you?
Yes, it is I.
Exclusively from Chrysler, our 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain pledge, because love is a commitment.
The Olympic Torch Relay presented by Coca-Cola. At the '86 Winter Games, he became the first American man to win an Olympic downhill. Today in Washington State, Bill Johnson carried the torch, reliving those glorious moments. In 16 days, Olympic glory returns to America on NBC.
My name's Tony Sanchez, and I'm running for governor. I was born and raised in Laredo.
My father struggled repairing typewriters and selling office equipment. I worked while in college and law school, got married and started a family. With my father and other partners, we started an oil and gas company and built one of the largest banks in Texas. I remember the 80s here in Texas, a depression for the oil and gas business and for banking. Tough times for me and most Texans. Like a lot of folks, I rolled up my sleeves and worked my way back. I'm proud to have helped create over 70,000 jobs. Recently, I was voted into the Texas Business Hall of Fame and appointed to the UT Board of Regents. As governor, I'll protect Texas values, cut waste, keep taxes down, help businesses create jobs, and bring better accountability to education so our children actually learn. With hard work, we can make Texas even better.
Tony Sanchez for governor, a leader as hard-working as Texas.
It's not about the destination. It's all about the drive. Chevy Impala LS. Now get $2,002 cash back and 5.9% APR on any 2002 Impala. Add highway fuel economy that's better than a V6 from a quarter Camry. And you have to ask yourself, what's not to love? Impala. It's Chevy Overdrive. See your local Chevy dealer today.
Get the latest from the Night V team tonight at 10 on News 2 Houston.
It is just days until the President's State of the Union address, usually the biggest speech of the year. In this war year, it is even more important. The pressure is on this man who sits in an office without windows in the basement of the West Wing. He is Michael Gerson, who at the age of 37 is the President's top speechwriter.
Whether we bring our enemies to justice or bring justice to our enemies, justice will be done.
The dramatic speech to Congress after September 11th was mainly the work of Gerson, but it will be a hard act to follow. He will get his marching orders from Karen Hughes. Hughes' job is to make sure the president's message gets out, and the speechwriter is the means.
Probably 3 or 4 hours from a draft.
The trick is to capture the president's voice.
On an instinctive level, he's a very good communicator in terms of you get a very clear sense from him where he stands. I think one of the challenges we have is to try to make sure that the speeches we draft sound like him.
Hughes wants to make sure no one turns her plain-spoken Texan boss into a Washington policy wonk.
Hey, David, it's Karen Hughes. How are you? Good. Need to talk to you about the radio address. The paragraph that starts, "My administration has fought hard for education reform and the work has resulted in the No Child Left," but it's too gobbledygook. I mean, it's legislative. Nobody's going to care.
And Hughes is just one of the many editors the speechwriters have to go through.
Well, this is the cover memo, and it has the names of all the people who have to check off on it. And red dots means I should have had this yesterday. It's very paper intensive, though, and it's time consuming as well. So we spend a lot of time doing paperwork.
After a 2-hour meeting with Hughes, Gerson is resigned to the fact the draft may take longer than he planned. He heads over to his second office. This one is more spacious. It's the Starbucks coffee house just down Pennsylvania Avenue. Here, he works unnoticed. For the president, a busy afternoon.
Hey, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Welcome, sir.
A formal session with the president of Lithuania.
Look here, President.
A meeting with senators and congressmen about the budget. He meets his bioethics commission, grappling with thorny questions of cloning.
Make sure we balance the culture of life with science and medicine.
Down the hall, the National Security Advisor's office juggles a flood of calls and visits.
All right, we're ready. Yeah.
Her territory is the world. Her mission not just to talk, but to listen. To be the president's ears across the globe.
I've really very much enjoyed getting to know you and your colleagues, and please give my regards to the Prime Minister.
Thank you.
The daily CIA briefing.
The briefing for the President this morning, is it pretty much what's here?
Dr. Rice will be here momentarily.
Her British counterpart, Sir David Manning, has to be put on hold.
Dr. Rice just called me from the Oval Office. We're going to have to cancel the call. She's down with the president. We'll call back if she has a moment.
It will have to wait.
Gandhi?
Karen Hughes and Rice meet to talk about changing the role of the Coalition Information Center now that the propaganda war is winding down.
Let me tell you what I'm sort of thinking. We don't have a structure in the United States government to coordinate a global communication strategy. So I think what you and I need to agree on is sort of a a structure for that.
And I'll get Governor Ridge.
Domestic security is also on Rice's agenda. She meets with Homeland Security Chief Tom Ridge to discuss secure communications at the Olympics.
I assume you're going to take care of, for instance, there may be key National Guard reserve type people who would need to have similar priority.
And in the midst of a tightly scheduled day, a sudden international crisis.
20 injured in an attack on a wedding.
A shooting in Israel. Coincidentally, the chief of the staff of the Israeli Defense Forces is in the West Wing, waiting to see Dr. Rice when he gets the news.
Yes, we've just heard this information, and obviously we will look forward to further information, but the President said many times this just can't happen. Attacks against innocents just cannot be tolerated.
Dr. Rice, the world is erupting every day. Is it going to remain a dangerous world for a long time?
It's going to be a dangerous world for a long time. I think we learned how dangerous on 9/11, and dangerous perhaps in ways that we had not fully appreciated. But America has an awful lot of assets to deal with this dangerous world. Most importantly, we've got the American people. If there is anything that 9/11 taught us, it's that the fabric of this country is remarkably strong.
The United States is going to have to find a new way to market itself, as it were, to this enormous population of people out there who've grown up hating us.
I think we sometimes overestimate how much people hate us. The people hate us. When you look at the importance that people attach to American culture, when you look at the number of people who choose to study in the United States if given a chance, this is really a place to which people look up.
When we return, a visit to the Oval Office. The president reflects on the office, the job, and the challenge ahead.
My baby loves me, she gets me feeling so fine. And when she loves me, she makes me know that she's mine. And when she kisses, I feel the fire get hot. She never misses. She gives it all.
The cars from Chrysler. So distinct. They have an attraction all their own. Exclusively from Chrysler, our 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain pledge, because love is a commitment.
When I have a cold sore, I feel like that's all people are looking at.
Abbreviate your cold sore with Abreva. Abreva cuts healing time in half because it helps stop the infection from invading healthy cells.
Kiss your cold sore goodbye.
Abreva cuts healing time in half.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Yes, it's the saddest experience you ever.
It's all you can eat shrimp. Would you like some more?
Thank you.
All-you-can-eat shrimp, now at Red Lobster. Enjoy all your favorites, golden fried, sizzling scampi, and savory shrimp pasta, just $12.99. Red Lobster, go overboard.
Isn't it time you found out about Imitrex? Ask your doctor if a free sample of Imitrex is right for you. Don't wait. Talk to your doctor today about a free sample of Imitrex.
Thinking about Viagra? It's now available in a free 6-pill sample pack.
6? That's my number.
So get in the driver's seat and ask about the free Viagra sample pack.
Get to your doctor for a checkup and find out if a free sample of Viagra is right for you.
For more information, race over to Viagra.com.
Friday, Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman on the Supreme Court, her first primetime network interview. Katie Couric with an NBC exclusive. Dateline Friday.
It has been 11 hours since the president walked over from the residence, and the lights are still burning all over the West Wing.
Mr. President, we've had a great day here.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
That's the good news. The bad news is we've decided to stay.
It's not over.
We're moving in.
This is a great office. It is, it's such an honor to come in here every day, and it's a powerful office.
You also keep the formality of it. You don't want your staff coming in here without their jackets on, I'm told.
No, we're not. We don't. That's right. We treat it. We treat it for what it is.
Right.
It is a part of the great heritage of the presidency, and it's a great part of the heritage of our country. It's like a shrine, and it's to be treated such.
And for this president, it is also a part of the Bush family heritage. Their second round as the nation's first family.
Now, when your dad comes through that door, does he go back over there and sit in that chair, and you have to say, "Wait a minute, it's now my chair"?
No, he was here the first day, and he was kind of speechless to watch his son walk in the Oval Office for the first time.
George Bush 43 says he talks with George Bush 41 frequently. But according to the president, it is personal, not policy. The tough decisions are made by the son.
I'm so struck by your ease of mind, how centered you are with all that's going on around you. I mean, when Lyndon Johnson was president of the United States, he was up in the middle of the night calling the Pentagon, finding out what was going on. When Richard Nixon was in here during Vietnam, it consumed him in a lot of ways.
Well, it's an interesting lesson that it does that. It goes to show that the war was not managed properly. The president shouldn't be running the war. The generals run the war. The president sets the strategy. That's the lesson of Vietnam that I brought to this office.
Do you ever leave here at night saying to yourself, okay, Osama bin Laden, where are you now?
No, I don't, because Osama bin Laden is not my focus. My focus is on terror at large, and that eventually we're going to get Osama bin Laden. My worry, if I have any worries that I carry, any burdens I carry, are about our own people, not him. Flight 93, to me, was a defining moment because it was the ultimate definition of sacrifice, where people would, on the phone to their wives, say a prayer, and then drive an airplane in the ground to save perhaps my life or the life of others. To me, that defines the new notion of a new ethic, a new attitude for our country.
Barbara and Jenna.
Yes, there they are.
Did they start calling you a lot more after September 11th and worrying about your well-being and how you're doing?
I think I called them more. I spent more time calling them, and well, I know I spent more time calling them. I call them quite frequently now.
This is a familiar desk.
Actually, Teddy Roosevelt used this desk.
Right.
He's an interesting guy. I mean, you know, he's a real, he's a hard charger, and
the press was even a pain in the fanny at that time, it turns out.
Well, the TV guys weren't that bad in those times.
And the TV guys are not doing much damage to the White House tonight.
Enron has fired its longtime auditor, Arthur Anderson. This means...
Just down the hall, Ari Fleischer chalks up a win for the press office spin team.
All right. Did you notice all the Enron stuff that everyone was asking about? Look what made it on the air. The business scandal side of it. All the political stuff, they're ignoring.
Fleischer's day is almost over.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a full lid for the evening.
A full lid. That's press office speak for done for the day. Around the West Wing, a very long day will soon wind down.
Where did they move my car?
Mary Madeline will go home at 8 o'clock, still working the phone after an 11-hour day.
They didn't change any of the Woodward stuff, did they?
Lights out for Karen Hughes will come at 8:06. She drove up at 7:06 this morning.
He has one thing in the works that he wanted me to check in with him before he left. So. Okay, great. Thank you.
Chief of Staff Andy Card, first man in at 5:40 a.m., will be last out at 8:59 p.m.
Try to explain to
the 43rd President of the United States will head back to the residence at 6:30. He'll go to dinner with Republican congressmen and senators.
Hey, Mr. President, good to see you, sir. Welcome.
He'll take a closeout call from National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice.
Anything else, Mr. President? All right, sir. Have a good evening. Bye-bye. All right. All set.
Mr. President.
And before he sleeps, Mr. Bush will read tonight's briefing book, preparing to do it all again tomorrow.
Right after 9/11, in this office, you got understandably very emotional, as we all did when we tried to talk about it.
I think the American people understand that I just reflected their mood, and I'm just a normal guy trying to, you know, got a job to do, and my emotions were all over the lot. What never was in doubt was my absolute determination to get them. And them is a big word, it turns out. It's not one person. It is a lot of people who believe that they can use terror and murder to fight freedom. And I believe this is a struggle of good versus evil. I believe this is a struggle of freedom versus tyranny. And I know that if we blink, or if we tire, the rest of the world will go to sleep. And if the rest of the world goes to sleep, evil wins. And we can't let that happen.
George W. Bush has a short walk home along the colonnade, following the historic footsteps of presidents before him.
Do you ever tire of this walk back to the White House?
No. This is a... Every day you get refreshed walking here. Thanks. Enjoyed it.
It's been a great day, Mr.
Tell your crew thanks.
Thank you very
all.
much. Thank
Come
you.
on, Vice. Here, let me give you this.
Thanks.
Here.
Thanks, Andy.
Sound men. Thank you all very much.
A year ago at this time, the president had been in the White House only 3 days, the winner of one of the most controversial elections in American history. Many wondered whether he was up to the job. Now, as he begins his second year, he is commander-in-chief in the truest sense of that phrase, and his approval rating hovers at 80%. It's been a historic transformation, but as he knows better than anyone, his time in the White House and the test it will bring are far from over. I'm Tom Brokaw. Good night for all of us.
Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry.
You were brilliant.
Did I survive?
You were brilliant.
NBC News, America's news leader.